Alrighty. Index Dawn is an ID full of charm and whimsy. It is a quintessential Dawn ID to the core. In gameplay, it is a solid ramp and insane damage outputs, and this time around, several routes and combos. The design is very similar to Dawn Office Sinclair, especially with the ego mechanics. However, it is infinitely more stable and easy to control. Plus, welcome back Claire. Only you're now a Dawn ID on sinking and poise instead. Like with the other IDs this season, going over their passives first is essential since it informs the entire rest of the kit. In this particular case, she's got 4 of them, 3 of them not requiring a single resource and the last requiring 3 different ones. While this sounds like it's gotten rather out of hand at this point, it's actually rather simple in practice. Prescript delivered on a device is her first one, and is real similar to Index Force Paper Slip. She gains a prescript at the start of turn, giving her a specific set of instructions to perform as well as a preferred target shared by all the Index IDs. All of the prescript instructions are virtually identical to Force: use marked skill, hit with a marked skill, etc. The third one, however, details hitting with an S3 while in ego state, or using an ego awakening, rather than just using an S3 that's been marked. However, compared to Force, she gets these prescripts not based on her grace of the prescript stack, but instead based on unlock stages. Unlock stages are obtained for every 3 grace of the prescript. Yeah, this is functionally exactly the same as Force version, just rather than only getting offensive level buffs, Unlock does a whole heck of other stuff too that plays into the rest of her kit. At free Unlock, she even gets Shin, Procuration, a wildly strong buff that comes with a Heroics or Berserker style damage buff, as well as status fixing effects and overall stat improvements. Will of the Prescript is pretty much the same as Index Forced, granting a bump in SP and Grace of the Prescript stacks for adhering to the Prescript. More Grace and SP if you hit the Prescript's targets. We also share the Karmic Consequences effect from failing to perform the Prescript. A reminder that this really starts to hurt at around 20 stacks when Fragile is applied to self. In Dawn's case, the defense level downs aren't the worst to deal with due to having a +2 by default, and later having sources of more defense level. The Fragile, on the other hand, will definitely tear into her defenses. Anyhow, at Unlock 3, so once we've stacked 9 Grace, we no longer need to worry about receiving Karmic Consequences for failing to adhere to the Prescript. Rather, the final Prescript, like with Forced, is just flavor. Unlock/Efflorest Ego Procuration is her third passive, and by far her most important one to inform our use of her. At turn end with 3, 6, 9 Grace, gain Unlock 1, 2, 3 respectively. Unlock is a progressively stronger buff that gives defense level equal to its stage and heals 5 SP per stage. Both effects help offset the demerits in her kit quite well. Aside from that, with at least 1 Unlock, she will consume 15 SP to swap into Efflorest Ego states. Compared to Dawn Office Sinclair, however, this will happen regardless of her SP, since she'll just throttle her SP up to 25, then forcibly activate her ego state. For every 5 SP difference gained to 25, she'll inflict a Karmic Consequence on herself. At 0, this means jumping straight to 5 Karmic Consequence. If she's above 25 SP though, she will not gain Karmic Consequence and just instead lose the SP. Do note, even if she throttles up to 25 SP, she'll be set to 10 due to consuming 15 to enter the Efflorest state. Now to boot on top of that, if you somehow lose the Efflorest state, you need to manually get her up to 25 SP again to enter Efflorest Ego, otherwise get to a new unlock state to more reliably trigger it. Mind you, try as I might, it is absurdly difficult to lose Efflorest states once you're in it, with the exception of heavy SP damage from sinking or using higher SP cost egos. She heals so much SP on her own that losing this state is a pipe dream, and I pretty much gave up on testing a lot of the edge case scenarios of her third passive's activations because she just refused to leave her ego state in a reasonable manner. I legit have to say you are playing her very wrong on purpose if you aren't in ego states at almost all times somehow. It's that difficult to lose it and that easy to gain it. It doesn't have a horrifying stacking upkeep cost like Dawn Office Sinclair. You don't even need to build sanity restoration options in order to keep it functional. Do note that if she somehow gets staggered when entering her ego state, she will just unstagger herself but not receive ego. While in ego, she also gets another buff called Faith Beyond Question. This is more baseline benefits in offense, defense, and speed, as well as more poise, coupled with a SP loss protection from her own skills, the cost of which we'll see later. The only other condition for losing ego states is to go below 0 SP at turn start, that of which is exceedingly difficult due to Faith Beyond Question and unlocks SP healing, meaning only an expensive ego or external SP loss causes can make her lose it reliably. As for her fourth passive, the fueled one that requires a Lust, Gloom, and Pride, it's similar to Force once again in provisioning damage from Grace of the Prescript on skills with Mark of the Prescript, up to 20%, but also allows her to heal even more SP on hits with base skills against the Prescript's target, once per skill, twice per turn, with more SP healing depending on her unlock stage. Overall, these passives provide a stupid amount of baseline benefits when stacked up, enough to offset quite a few of the demerits of Karmic Consequence, even if she has to stack it up. In total, this is 6 offense level, 6 defense level, 3 minimum and maximum speed, plus 2 poise potency, plus 1 poise counts, 20% damage from Grace, 40% damage from missing HP, and 15 SP heal per turn. This is a ridiculous amount of benefits for following along with the Prescripts, far more than Faust gets. That being said, her SP is going to yo-yo a bit, causing some inconsistencies, but with this much in the way of stats, she can push past quite a lot of content and punch well above her weight, especially when we start overlaying these benefits onto her skills. She has 8 skills, so I'll go over the base ones real quick before slamming into the ego ones. First off, all of her base skills are blunt damage instead of slash. If we were able to more readily swap between these, it'd be fantastic, but alas, we're going to mostly be stuck in slash when we arrive at the ego states. Skill 1 applies some sinking potency and poise counts. It's not the worst thing once conditionals get going, hitting above the norm out of 16 if all conditionals are met. It's also poise neutral if everything crits, and positive if only the second coin crits, even with end of turn decay. Skill 2 is very similar, though instead of granting as much poise count, it opts for potency and a single count, while applying a lot more sinking. With all of its conditionals, it goes both poise and sinking negative, but that is fine since it is a solid potency stim. Skill 3 hits hard with a bunch of conditionals, notably final power instead of coin power, with an obtuse magic number of 16 instead of the usual 12. It has unbreakable conditionals, damage conditionals, and is surprisingly poise neutral and sinking neutral so long as there's at least 3 sinking counts to buffer before the second coin hits and applies counts. It does need to crit, otherwise it goes negative. That said, this thing hits really hard even if we rarely see it come up. The defense skill is a regular counter, but with 3 coins and final power conditionals. It acts much like Force counter but with some extras. We get some poise counts to not go turbo negative, and we skip the need to do the first prescript at great cost. At turn end, it jacks our Grace of the Prescript straight to 3 and gives us unlock 1, so long as we don't have unlock. For every Grace we receive this way, we are getting 5 Karmic Consequences to boot. From 0, this means getting 15, but if it were that kind and let us avoid the fragile, there wouldn't be a trade-off. By using this counter, we are also failing the Prescript on purpose, meaning we're eating another 5 Karmic Consequence. Since we are instantly getting the first unlock stage, we're also getting 5 more Karmic Consequence from the SP differential to activate Ego State, meaning if we slot this in on turn 1, that's an instant -2 defense level and 1 fragile from 25 Karmic Consequence. While we skip the minigames required of building Grace the normal way to unlock Dawn, we are functionally brute forcing it and facing the consequences of our actions in the form of severe defense penalties. Functionally, this is a plus 16% or so damage received in order to skip the first minigame. We'll go over where this is particularly useful later. Another important tech to note here that I didn't mention with Force that applies to her as well. Mark of the Prescript only gets applied to attack base skills, meaning that if you get an S3 early that isn't highlighted, you can store it by converting it to a defense skill, as only the upcoming skill will get highlighted instead. Similar to insight locking with Hongers. You can also use this to guarantee a highlight on your preferred skill if it is the upcoming one to boot. This helps a lot for preserving S3s. Now we're hitting the Effloresced Ego state. First off, at base, every skill is getting 1 more offense level just for being in this state. That means going from +2, +3, and +4 to +3, +4, and +5. Couple that with Faith Beyond Question, and that's actually +3 just for being in this state alone. That's +1 clash power out the gate on everything. The counter, on the other hand, becomes a clashable and gains +2 offense level instead of 1. Oh right, and Grace the Prescript is another +1. Everything is +4 for hitting unlock 1. It is a stupid amount of tiny buffs that add up to absurdity. Heck, this is more than Lord Hongers could hope for. That should tell you just how ridiculous Dawn's gains are. To add to all of that, her skills all change to slash damage. With that in mind, skill 1-2 is pretty much exactly the same, but gains less poise, inflicts a sinking count, and loses SP after the attack. It also has the final power inbuilt rather than needing a mark, so if it's ever the target of an assist attack, it hits a little better than otherwise. Anyhow, becoming -1 on sinking instead of -2 is actually quite good, because if we get any other external sinking count, she goes neutral with this instead. Staying poise neutral is also quite nice to boot. Skill 2-2 is similar in adjustment, and receives a few minor buffs to go alongside. First off, the Mark of the Prescript doesn't give final power, but instead a 10% boost in damage, with the final power instead being baked into her skill already. It also inflicts 1 more point of sinking, then loses 6 SP. Otherwise, it's mostly the same as her non-ego variants. Skill 3-3 gets by far the most changes, and it's not even close. First off, the skill is always unbreakable and is now 4 coins. Mark no longer grants coin power, just a 25% damage buff in place of critical damage. Now we have a magic 12 status coin power conditional, and we are poise negative now. We are also hopelessly sinking negative. However, we're about to do a stupid amount of damage mainly on the final coin, that is now juiced to hell and back. The final coin gets coin power and damage based on unlock stages, meaning this skill can roll really damn high with all the offense level bonuses in her kit. This thing is very difficult to lose clashes with when fully stacked up. Heck, even when only partially stacked up. Last, her alternative defense skill is a bloody clashable counter instead of a normal one. It exchanges poise count for potency, loses out on damage conditionals, but brute forces the unlock stages upwards once per turn at the cost of karmic consequences. Thankfully, the stages aren't as expensive since we're already in ego state. However, it's still around 20 karmic consequence to brute force if we haven't built up any grace in the interim. If we loop a counter into another counter, that's straight up 45 karmic consequence just to get to unlock 2. This is particularly brutal since unlock 3 requires either an S3 to hit the prescript target or an ego awakening skill to hit the target. Otherwise, we can of course hit this counter a 3rd time in a row and jack our asses up to 65 karmic consequences, at which point Dawn will basically be made of paper and all of the defense level gained from her other buffs will pretty much be erased. So where does she fit then? Sinking, poise, combination of the two, standalone? Honestly, she fits anywhere. Her kit, while not perfectly self-sufficient, is still more than capable of squeezing into many compositions, even if only for the physical damage. That said, I want to experiment with the newer stuff more, so I'll give a quick short list of things that benefit her to have on a team, before diving straight into play patterns, as you can consult my Udjat Otis video and index forced ones for the nitty gritty on sinking and poise teams accordingly. That said, with her on the team, a decent few things do need to get shaken up in order to keep things relatively consistent, at least in terms of status application, should we wish to profit from it specifically. Quickfire, we're looking at Muller, Ishmael, and Knight of Despair Rodya for sinking count application. These two go exceedingly positive, plus so long as we watch our count a little closer, they are more than enough to get most engines online. Second, we're taking Index Forced. While she's mostly negative, as she ramps her poise, she can start going neutral as well, while applying quite a ridiculous amount of sinking potency when she gets going. As another member of the Index, it may get troublesome to play around the marks, but in most cases is more than doable, especially with 7 sinners on the field. Next is Udjat Otis. While others may argue for the Butler, I prefer a little more consistency in our math. Plus, we're taking her for the Blue Sand, Shoot Fracture, and Gloom damage benefits. With Blue Sand, she goes largely neutral and helps others here go more neutral as well, since past her own clash, 2 other clashes are getting a +1 so long as Blue Sand is up. If we can get a runaway amount of sinking counts after Blue Sand application, we're golden. Just gotta make sure our math is up to scratch to keep things going. The choice of Yi Sung is first then important to consider. Here I prefer Solemn Lament over Spicebush, since Spicebush is largely negative on turn but decently positive in post. While Solemn Lament isn't completely neutral, Blue Sand accommodates for at least 3 IDs clashing, and since all of his count application is on clash, we can reliably use this guy to pay off our sinking more often than not. In most cases, Butterfly is going to go a really long way, and naturally synergizes with Dawn due to granting some SP recovery as well. That said, we're up to 4 neutral to negative sinking count IDs, making the last choice rather awkward. Functionally, this is between Gregor and Heathcliff, both of which have their ups and downs when it comes to sinking specifically. Gregor eats a little less counts on half his kits. Rather, the S1 is only a single coin, and the S3 only counts for 1 in 6 skills that he may make use of. His S2 is stupid positive, functionally being a +3 count on Clash win. He also has the big Solemn Lament ego to pay it all out if required. The argument for Heathcliff is his panic type change capabilities in Impending Ruin, giving a possible big boost in sinking count and potency. This is especially useful on groups. On the other hand, almost all of his skills go negative, with no real options for neutral. The S3 is the exception, but requires him to be on foot and hit the targets while they have Ruin on them to really shine. Now the final nail in the coffin for this guy is his support passive. It's one not a lot of people actually look at very often due to wanting to field him. His is infinitely more useful than Gregor's when in the back line. It's an SP differential based damage buff, but changes to a count and potency buff for sinking when the target doesn't have SP. This is quite huge to consider as it's functionally 2 sinking count for free. Plus, Heathcliff can sit in the back to start and rotate onto the field if I ever need him, I reckon. We'll be taking Gregor instead, unless it's an unfocused or group encounter, in which case I would rather prioritize Heathcliff. For the supports, they're very straightforward. We're taking Mexiclair for the functionally unconditional damage buff, LCCB Roshu for the ammo users, Full Stop Hongers for the ammo users, and finally, Blade Lineage Assault for that sweet crit damage both our IDs abusing poise, both of which are locked into slash damage for the most part anyway. Team aside, play patterns are by far the most important here with such a convoluted kit. There's about 3 different routes we can take here for Dawn, or if for some reason we want to stall her out. We can turbo up to unlock free through her defensive skill, Karmic Consequences be damned. If we can't get a relevant target or for whatever reason can't fulfill the prescript perfectly for free grace, we can slam the counter to brute force our way upwards. The first one will cost 25 Karmic Consequence, the second and third another 20 each, but by turn 4 we'll have a demon on our hands. A demon that's made of paper, however, as she'll be taking 30% increased damage despite her enhanced defensive capabilities. This is a pretty solid route for unfocused encounters where it's more difficult to hit our prescript's targets. The counters are no slouch either, since they are free coiners and can still hit relatively hard. However, we may be on the back foot due to not building up quite as much poise as taking the other routes. That said, from turn 4 onwards, her poise generation is quite strong due to the Faith and Shin buffs acquired. Aside from that route, we can consider the hybrid ones. If there are turns where we can fulfill the prescript, we don't have to gain Karmic Consequence for ignoring the beeper. In focused encounters, I reckon this is the better route to take. Turn 1 and 2 fulfill the prescripts. Turn 3, if we don't have an S3 ready to go or don't want to use a subpar ego, we can jump straight into unlock 3 with her counter instead. This means eating 20 Karmic Consequence, but honestly that's fine since we'll still have +4 defense level, which should help mitigate the fragility we would otherwise receive. Of the other hybrid styles we can consider, there's the stall instead, where we can instead stall her out at 0 to 5 grace of the prescripts. The main benefit here is avoiding Karmic Consequence altogether by building up enough SP to activate her ego states without needing the SP compensation. This means using her marked skill, but not against the targets. At 0 to 2, this is a lot more doable, but we'd have to stall out at least 2 turns in order to not eat any Karmic Consequences. This I find to be stupid. It's better to just hit the relevant targets for the first unlock after a Clash win, since with a Clash win we'd be healing 10 to 12 SP on average, followed by 8 for fulfilling the prescripts. At most we're eating around 2 Karmic Consequences to enter ego, but more likely just a singular one which does nothing to us. Now on the other hand, stalling out from 3 to 5 isn't the worst, as the skill bucket may have forced us to use an S3 already, and we may just want to use a more beneficial ego for the rest of the team, say a Bind, Foracalgia, or Fluid Sac, anything that enhances more than just Dawn alone. Besides, at 6 there isn't even a guarantee that we hit our target with an ego if the attack weight isn't high enough. And Dawn doesn't exactly have a high attack weight ego to easily access in a sinking team, due to the sin affinities we have running around. Her own fluid sac is only an attack weight of 3, so it isn't perfect. In a focused encounter though, it really won't matter. We could even hit a La Sangre and it'll do. Nonetheless, stalling at unlock 1 means we have about half her kit online, while we try to troubleshoot our way to unlock 2 and 3. Another route is to just follow the damn prescript perfectly. Do that for 3 turns in a row and bam, we have a fully powered Dawn with none of the demerits. Potentially quite insane. We'll need a bit more than just luck here to pull this off though, potentially needing to manipulate ego resources and force less than ideal turns for the rest of the team in order to afford Dawn and ego. This is still playable, I reckon, but it may cause issues with our sinking counts or otherwise be more trouble than it's worth if the prescript's target lands somewhere not ideal, especially since we're also running Forced alongside. Honestly, my personal pick would be the second option, wherein we eat 20 karmic consequences after fulfilling the prescript twice. This means we can dedicate ego resources to better egos for the team. Plus, with that in mind, the play pattern would change quite a bit in order to facilitate all of our plans. On turn 1, we would want to get as many passives active as possible. With both Dawn and Forced on the field, this means getting 4 different colors at once. These being Sloth, Gloom, Lust, and Pride to activate both their passives and immediately get returns on Grace of the Prescript. A single point of Lust will probably be the most troublesome one to get, as it is only available on Dawn's S1 and Gregor's S3 if we aren't taking Heathcliff. Otherwise, Heathcliff's clashable counter is a guarantee. Sloth is very easy to come by as 4 of our sinners sport it. Pride and Gloom too should be rather elementary. However, there are some restrictions beyond to consider. If we want to turbo Dawn, she will not provide any Lust and instead a Gloom, meaning Heathcliff or Gregor have to supplement for her. Podya has to provide a Gloom in order to function out the gate. Otis also wants for free Gloom to even start her engine and be a real unit. Plus, there's suddenly a free Gloom requirement with potentially 2 sinners instantly locked into Gloom. With Heathcliff on board, this would likely not be a problem whatsoever. But if it's Gregor, we're gonna be praying for an S3 earlier rather than not. Otherwise, Dawn will lose out on potential damage and SP healing until we manage to slap in a Lust. Plus, in summary, we want to hit a Lust, Pride, Sloth, and at least 3 Gloom on turn 1. If possible, a second Pride or 4th Gloom to push for more passives. The 4th Gloom will enable Sinclair, whereas the second Pride will help push us towards Kodya, Roshu, Masalt, Hongers, and Ishmael. Almost everyone else is a Bloody Resonance passive working off a free Gloom, which is fucking fantastic since it'll be stupid easy to activate on bigger turns since everyone wants to S3 anyway. Regardless, turn 2 is fishing for more Pride, missing Lust, and more Gloom if at all possible. This will help build up towards ego use for either Dawn or Forced. Depending on their skill buckets and ability to fulfill their prescripts, we'll want to pivot towards one or the other. If both of them can hit 6 Grace off of this turn, we'll need to check if they have S3s ready to go. If they both have S3s that can be marked next turn to use on a target, most likely during a focused encounter, then we can just send it and rely on those to get to 9 Grace. On the other hand, if S3s aren't upcoming or have already been used, we'll need to look at egos. Force takes priority here since her egos are more useful than Dawn's in this particular team. If we took Heathcliff, Fluid Sac is a little more attractive an option, whereas if we took Gregor, Horacalcia is better off due to the resource spread. Regardless, if we must, then on turn 3 we should drop Force Ego and a counter on Dawn. This will get both of them to maximum Grace, meaning both will be throttled to their maximum potential. If we must ego with Dawn for whatever reason, try to make it an overclocked Fluid Sac. 10 Sinking and Tremor is kind of nuts. It also rolls stupid high, like stupid high. Couple that with all of her offensive level buffs, you get the picture. The passive is also really funny too, since it's direct SP damage that could actually factor in quite a bit, so long as you keep the Gloom resonances coming. From there, it's a matter of playing the sinking game and ensuring we're going as positive as possible until the count is pretty much out of hand. Priority goes to getting Blue Sand off to make the others more positive, these being Kodya, Yi-Sung, and Gregor. As for getting more counts, anything for Kodya, S1 from Yi-Sung, and S2 from Gregor should all but ensure that the count stays quite healthy, even with multiple other units going negative. Meanwhile, Ishmael should prioritize S1 and S3 until such a time where the count is positive enough to consider wanting to stim it further upwards. As Forced and Dawn scale up, their sinking infliction improves. Forced more so than Dawn, whereas Dawn has a healthier time with Poise. If we do get that Horacalcia off, Both of them should be exceedingly healthy in terms of poise, and some of the others may get funny options open to them. Specifically, both Otis and Yi Sung may suddenly find themselves critting out of nowhere if Lucky Sig procs on them. While the random extra damage is funny, it is very unlikely to actually happen, unless we somehow get further support through either an Otis Sun Shower or Ishmael Blind Obsession, both of which are even more unlikely to even get use. Sun Shower pretty much being a Superbia or bust kind of affair. Past there is a few sinking payoff options available to us, notably the 2 Solemn Laments, or otherwise Otis's Should Fracture, though that one needs more to function. That said, with the sheer number of damage multipliers that Dawn has access to within her kit independent of status, as long as we ramp her up, we'll be getting a stupid amount of physical damage out of her as well. Last to mention is playing in her non-ego state. While it's not as readily available as, say, Dawn offers Sinclair, and nowhere near as easy to stumble into even by accident, if she's ever in a non-ego state with unlocks, use her counter or S3 as those are what scale with unlock. These can be particularly funny in terms of power as well, since both of them do have quite a lot of damage conditionals tied to them, especially the S3 with 180% plus crit damage on top of it. Some Looney Tunes levels of damage available, even when she isn't in her ego state. Mind you, the only consistent way of getting her here is by using an SP intensive ego, that of which she doesn't have amazing access to. If this is the kind of level we can expect for IDs in the future from this canto, I'll be quite impressed. If we at least get all of the apprentices at this kind of level, we're in for some real fun kits to use in the future. That said, with the way things are going in the story, I am 100% expecting a boss rush next week, a rather unforgiving one. Now, if we're to ever get the Nurse Fathers as IDs, those are going to be exceedingly stupid if this is the level we're at with apprentices. Regardless, thanks for tuning in to another guide. While this one isn't as comprehensive as the previous 2 in terms of team building, I figure that the other 2 should supplement quite well for building up towards this specific team. Most of the stuff is quite attainable, and with the next Walpurgis, definitely shardable for this season. After all, we don't have to use a single Heisho for this composition, thank God for that. I'll see what I end up pushing out next week, though it might be a rather crash out or rambly heavy video regarding the literary references in Canto 9, or some tinfoil hat conspiracy levels of bullshit that I'd want to cover from the community. We'll see. Once again, community Discord is open. I'll probably be running some tabletop shenanigans there in the coming month. So if you're interested in trying out a system I designed adapted for Project Moon, I'll be opening that up by the end of the month sometime. Aside from that, thanks for the support. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and leave a comment below regarding any topics or ideas you want me to cover in the future. The video ends here.